What's going on? What is going on? It is your boy Smooth Blaze, and I'd like to welcome you back to CEO Lifestyle. Now, before we get into episode 1, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, select all so you will not miss one video. Now, the question we have to ask ourselves is, are you a CEO? Think about this and keep this in your mind as we go through this episode 1 and also through this series. When I looked up the definition of what a CEO was, it said a person responsible for making major decisions, strategic planning, and also managing over operations. When you think about a CEO, you think about an overseer, someone who makes sure he crosses all his T's and dot all his I's. As I went deeper into my research, I also looked at something as relates to key roles and key responsibilities. The first word that came to mind was strategic planning, decision making, leadership, communication, and also performance management and leadership styles. Now, the biggest thing that I identified when it came to as it relates to these key roles was major performance management and communication. Those are the two things that kind of spoke to me the most. Communication wise is being able to articulate yourself so each and every person can understand where you're coming from and how to execute things overall. If you know how to do this on a workplace setting and in your personal life, people will understand where it goes. Now, the next major component that I looked at was performance management. We all are designed to look at things based off how well we perform from a financial perspective and also from a metrics perspective. You have to look at it as you relate to on the workplace. How many persons did you hire? Or how many clients did you get jobs? These different things matter. And how many people did you get connected with or communicate with to be able to become a part of a program, right? That's the work side. As it relates to the personal side, you're thinking about how you budget your money. How much money do you have after you pay your bills? Do you have any spending money? Do you have funds to go do with entertainment? Do you have funds to deal with trips? These are things you have to always look at to understand how well you're performing, whether you're successful or where you're failing. A question or two for you. What do you oversee in your workplace? This is a question you have to ask yourself. If you're a supervisor, of course you oversee your staff and your subordinates, making sure that they're doing what they need to do. And from a coworker's perspective or a subordinate, your responsibilities are very simple. The employees or the clients that you deal with, the cases, and how well you take care of your clients and where they prosper or move forward as it relates to that. Let's talk about something different. How well or how do you oversee your household? There's always a hierarchy. When I think about hierarchy, the first thing that comes is God. Next will be your wife. Next will be, switch it up. God, husband, wife, kids, etc. How do you take care of your family? How do you take care of your property that you're living in? How do you take care of bills? How do you save money? How do you invest money? Those are things that you have to look at as you oversee this, because you can determine whether or not y'all successful or y'all failures, just overall. That's a good example. Is your company prospering or is it failing? When you look at the metrics, dynamics, and camaraderie as relates to the workplace, depending on how well you perform will determine whether or not you're prospering or you're failing. If your performance levels are great, there might still be areas where you need to improve on camaraderie, but there's always room to grow. From a personal perspective, think about this. When you think about the personal side of things, you have to look at, as a household, what are we doing to ensure that we get the results that we want to get? If we want to set goals for our lives or set goals for the future Well, we want to save this amount of money. Well, we want to maximize here. We want to cut back here to make sure we have that, or we need to save this for a trip our kids need to go on, or a fundraiser. These are things we have to understand for ourselves to understand whether or not we have a system in place as the headship of what you are at the house. Is it successful or are we failing? Another question that has to be known and you have to identify is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses as a CEO? You're a CEO, I'm a CEO, right? So pros to being a CEO is strategic vision. You have a forefront to see where we're going versus where we at and how to get there. Decisiveness is important. Being able to respond to all type of different situations as CEO, that should be a strength for you. Adapting and innovation. There's going to be changes all the time. You have to be able to maneuver in spaces where it may be uncomfortable to get the results that you want. That's another thing that's a good thing about that. Results oriented. Results will tell you whether or not you're doing well. If things are flowing good for you, it will produce positive results. If things are not going well, you will see the repercussions of it, which could cause connection problems, which could cause focus as far as a team to be a negative and people not influenced to do things. So it causes a domino effect. Think about strategic autonomy. What this means is the ability to lead and steer organizations independently. You have to be able to have leadership skills or qualities that's going to motivate somebody to do something and believe in what you're trying to go for. If you cannot do that, it's going to be a negative. So here are some cons of being, or some of the weaknesses that possibly can come up as being a CEO. Personal isolation. Sometimes you can be too isolated, worried about yourself, that you don't see what the competitors are doing. Overcommitment and micromanaging. The biggest negative is when you're in a situation where you're trying to ensure that everybody's doing their job right, but sometimes it could be a burden on somebody because you're doing or overseeing where you stand. Delegation is important. Allow them to do that. Trust them to do that so that they can maximize and do these things. That's how you become well. But if you aren't able to do that, that's a negative. Poor work-life balance and burnout. This is always a problem when you're a CEO. You have to make time for vacations. You have to make time for breaks. You have to make time for somebody to step in the gap when you aren't able to do that. Another issue could be failure to set clear expectations. You can have a long-term goal, but those short-term goals within that you may not have identified. So it gives a negative broadness on what the views are. Also, difficulty with performance management. Sometimes you have a situation where you have an employee or a person that might be underperforming. You have to understand why they're underperforming. What things can I improve as an organization or as a CEO to make things better for them so we can enhance the performance. It could be personal, it could be work related, it could be anything. But identifying these things are essential and could be caused as a weakness. The biggest thing that I've learned, and this question is going to be something that we all have to look for ourselves, is how do we deal with setbacks and failures? As a CEO of your life and CEO in the workplace, but mainly in your life, you're going to run into things that's going to happen, emergencies, things that you didn't expect. What defines you more is how you bounce back, how you don't let it phase you, how you don't get too emotional to the point where you can't think straight and you can't move straight. It's important and it's essential that you make sure that you learn from these setbacks, because these are tests and opportunities. There are threats out here as well, but these tests are opportunities for you to succeed because you have to know where your foundation stands. So when we think about all these things, remember the first question I asked you: are you a CEO? In life, or in your profession and in your personal life. And as we close, I would like to thank you for checking out my first episode. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, select all, so you will not miss one video. Now, before we go, remember this simple phrase: we cannot control the hand that was dealt for us, but I promise you we can move with a purpose. It is your boy, Smooth Blaze, and I am signing out. Peace.